What is up, YouTube? KidMoto22 here. Just on my way home from work today, and I started thinking about this road that I'm going to be getting on here, that I've traveled on hundreds of times since I started a job that was 30 miles from my home and I had to commute. I travel on this road all year round in all kinds of different weather conditions, and then I commute obviously when the weather's nice on my bike on this road. And it really made me to start thinking about that idea of big bike versus small bike. Now this isn't a this isn't a brand specific topic or a, something that is like a, Harley versus Indian or Harley versus Honda or anything like that. Specifically just like large displacement bike versus smaller displacement bike, and why you would choose either one, and what, kind of what went into some of my decision making in that process. And this road specifically is one thing that made me think about it. So let's get to it. Let's talk about this topic. All right, welcome back, YouTube. KidMoto22 here, and I am going to talk to you guys today about big bike versus small bike, and what goes into making that decision, whether you should have a large displacement motorcycle versus a smaller displacement motorcycle. So for me, these are the factors that I weighed into when I was getting a different bike, why I went with the larger displacement bike, and why I went with the style of bike that I did. And I think it's a consideration everybody should make. So the first thing I would say is that you got to test ride, right? You got to get out and test ride bikes. If you have a dealership that allows you to, or if you're looking in the used market, if you're going to be riding a used bike, you got to get out there and get your butt on a seat and feel what the bike is going to feel like underneath you, because there's so many factors that go into whether a bike is the right fit for you, and engine displacement is just one of them. But the size and weight of the bike can certainly make a huge difference in whether or not you're choosing the right bike for you. And for me, it was about how I intended on riding and how I was going to be using my bike and how I was using the bike I had, right? So the bike that I had previous to this was a 2009 Harley-Davidson Nightster. That's in the Sportster category. It was the 1200, the larger displacement Sportster, and it's a fun bike. It was set up with the forward controls so that it was easier for me to, feel like I wasn't cramped up. I was nice and stretched out on that bike. Kind of like putting my feet on the forward controls. I was probably a little bit more stretched out on that Sportster than I am with my foot on the floorboards of my Road King. Now, the bar position on the Sportster was probably not optimal. I really had to kind of rock the bars forward quite a bit to make it so that it was, kind of a right fit for me. Those kind of things, you make those adjustments. But so this road in particular, and why I think about it, is that you might be able to hear a little bit of wind noise today. Hopefully it's not too bad, but you can probably hear some wind noise today as we're going down this road. And that made me think of one of the things that I factored into getting a larger displacement bike was the weight of the bike makes a difference in how you feel when you're traveling down the road. There was a few times I remember driving down this road on my Sportster when I was hitting a pretty bad headwind and or crosswind, and I had one side of my butt off of the seat, and I was leaning heavily one direction to keep my bike straight up and down. That's because the bike weighed significantly less than this bike, and it took more of my effort to keep the bike upright and going in a straight line. That was definitely a factor in me choosing a larger displacement bike. I wanted to feel more planted. I wanted to be less affected by the wind. Now, obviously I didn't go with the full touring, so I didn't go with a full fairing bike because those are even more planted, right? But I wanted something that was going to be bigger and heavier, and plus for me, I spend most of my time riding like this. I don't ride around town a lot. I like longer distance trips. I like the open road. I like to travel. I like to ride across country. All of those things factored into me choosing a larger displacement bike. Can you use a smaller displacement bike for any of those things? Absolutely. I wouldn't argue that. There's people that ride, scooters across the country. So I would never argue and say that's, any bike can be used to do any of those things. Just like you can find YouTube videos where people are taking Honda 50s, carrying all the groceries and 3 of their family members on the bike and driving around. Bikes are utilitarian by nature, can be used for many different things. So that's not, I'm not going to make that argument. What I'm saying is when you're choosing a bike, should you choose a larger displacement or a smaller displacement bike, and why? Right? So I say, how are you going to use your bike? Right? If you're the kind of person that's just going to be riding around town, maybe you want a smaller displacement bike. Those bikes are going to be fun to ride from light to light. They're going to be easy to maneuver through traffic. They're going to be, comfortable for those trips where you're just maybe on the bike for, maybe 20 or 30 minutes at a time or riding around town. You're not going to be commuting. You're not on the open road. You're not riding across country. Maybe you choose that smaller displacement bike because it's more affordable. That's definitely a factor. Now, you can find a used, larger displacement bike on the market for, for a very affordable price. Get outside of the Harley-Davidson motorcycles and you can find an 1800 Honda that's going to be way less expensive than a touring Harley, right? Or a Kawasaki Vulcan, Kawasaki Vulcan 2000. That bike was named Bike of the Year when that bike came out. That's like an 1875 cc, fast, huge motor, fast bike. You can pick one of those up probably right now, I bet you, for $3,000. If you look, on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. So, you got to keep your options open for that. But those bikes, a larger displacement bike by nature is going to be heavier. And is that going to be the right fit for you? That's a question, right? So let me know in the comments below what you think. If you chose the displacement of your motorcycle based on how you ride, based on the best fit for you, how did you choose your bike? If you were choosing between a larger displacement or a smaller displacement motorcycle, because I want to know. I know how I chose my bike, and I've told you that story, and I kind of reiterated it again today. But I want to know your story. Tell me about why you chose the bike that you chose, and whether or not, if you have multiple bikes, if you have them for different reasons. If maybe you have a smaller displacement bike to rip around town, or like Weaponetta Mike on our podcast, on the 5 Dirty Bikers podcast, I should say, he rides the bike that he rides because he does mostly off-road, and he had a KLR 650 that he traded in because it was too heavy. So he traded in a KLR 650, which by nature is not a heavy bike, but for how he wanted to ride was still too heavy, and he got a lighter bike. an even lighter bike so he could even do more and have less trouble tossing it around and doing jumps and those kind of things. So definitely went with, and his horsepower to weight ratio is off the charts, right? His bike is fast compared to the size and weight of the bike, certainly compared to mine, which is a monster compared to his. So I think probably three of his bikes would still weigh less than mine. So that's what I want to know. I want to know if you're choosing your bike big or small based on your riding style, based on your budget. What was it? Let me know. Hit that in the comments below. So just thought came to me today. I was riding home. I just thought I'd hit you guys up and ask you those questions, and yeah, let me know what you think. So if you like what I'm doing, you can subscribe to my channel. That's going to be right down here. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. If you want to hear more of my content, hit the bell icon and hit the subscribe button, and you'll know when you get more of my content. This is Kid Moto. I'm out.